Hey, it's Amy Brown from The Bobby Bone Show. Join me in supporting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital for a chance to win a trip to meet Megan Maroney at the 2025 iHeart Country Festival in Austin, Texas on May 3rd, hosted by Bobby Bones. We're going to hook you up with tickets, flights, hotel, food credits, and a meet and greet with Megan Maroney. Take action now to support St. Jude and help cure childhood cancer, and you're going to be entered for a chance to win. Visit iHeartCountryTrip.com to learn more.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 7th episode of Crime Over Wine, the only podcast with head-scratching true crime stories that are just better over a bottle of wine. I'm your host, Liam Collins, and this week I have the silliest little goose for a guest host. She is a wine girl and a dog mom, too. My guest host this week is Lucy Nelson. Hello, Lucy. How are you?
Liam, I'm great, baby. How are you?
Oh, I am so good. It is so good to see your cute little face. I'm obsessed with you. I love you so much.
Stop. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. When can we open the wine?
Oh, okay, slow your horses a little bit.
Sorry.
So Lucy is a reporter in Salt Lake City, Utah, but we met when we were competing rival reporters in Jacksonville, North Carolina, but don't worry, we are bestest of friends now. And Lucy, I should also mention that last week we talked about the Mariah Woods case, and I'm wondering if you just wanted to weigh in on whatever you wanted to share about that case.
Liam, that was one of the first stories I heard of before I got to Jacksonville, North Carolina, when I first got that job reporting. I mean, it was just crazy to me how so many people were impacted by that, even when they didn't even know her. But I mean, the whole town was out there looking for her. Just such a brutal case, you know? I mean, I'm sure you covered some of that as well.
I mean, we did play like some, and I'll send it to you also, I mean, you might have seen it, but some aerial video of just the number of people. I showed Meredith the number of people who showed up to search for Mariah. It was heartbreaking. And, you know, I mean, I know you know what it's like to live in Jacksonville, because like, I know you live in Jacksonville too. And so, you know, it was devastating to know that many people really rallied around to try to find this like adorable 3-year-old girl.
Oh, it's just heartbreaking. I know. And I remember we even had stories about how the case was postponed, how the trial was postponed because people were so upset. They wanted justice for Mariah. I know the DA was seeking the death penalty, right? And that didn't happen. So I'm sure. I know everyone has their opinions on that, but definitely an impactful case for sure.
Yeah, and it was just, I mean, it makes me sick to my stomach just knowing, like, why he did it. And, you know, just for our listeners, like, go back and listen to our last episode if you didn't yet, because it is one of the saddest episodes I think I've ever done and ever listened to. So definitely make sure you grab your glass of wine for that one, because you are definitely going to need it to get through the end of that episode.
For sure. Definitely an important one. Go back and listen. But definitely have the glass of wine ready for that one. My goodness.
Well, speaking of wine, I think we have a bottle to drink, Lucy. What do you think?
I think so. I finally get to open it.
Let's do it. So this week we are drinking Josh's Rosé. It's from California, and the vineyard describes the wine as crisp, refreshing, and bright. It's a light rosé with flavors of white peach and strawberry and scents of nectarine, which, by the way, so last week we were talking, Meredith and I, the bottle that Meredith and I drank last week also had hints of nectarine, and I've never heard of nectarine in a wine before. And so it's just funny how it's 2 weeks in a row that this is the flavors that we're going for. So maybe I'm just missing something, but the vineyard also says it's perfect for sunsets and summer days. And that just like feels like our vibe, Lucy. I feel like that's like, we're summer girls.
Oh my God, summer girls for sure. What did you think of the nectarine?
I really actually enjoy the nectarine. I thought it was very refreshing. And And the wine that we drank last week, again, was very subtle. It was subtle enough that you were like, that was like, oh, like oranges. Like, that's really interesting. And so I'm really interested to see what Josh does with it.
Our boy Josh.
Yeah, we're gonna see what happens here.
Hopefully Josh keeps me company. I remember my father came home one day. He visited my apartment and he was like, for when you're lonely, he brought me Josh and Justin wine. He said, here are your boys if you ever need them. I said, thank you, Father. Am I that lonely that I need 2 bottles of wine? Like to think so, but no, it's like that new Miley Cyrus song Flowers. Like, who needs anyone? We have our Josh. No one. And he is very refreshing. I'm feeling that refreshing. What do you think?
Yeah, I really like it, and I don't really taste the nectarine as much as I did last week, so, and it is like a sweeter rosé for sure, and, I'm not huge on sweets, I'm like a dry wine drinker, in case, like, literally, and again, anyone who's listened to our first 6 episodes know that I literally never stop talking about dry wines, so this is... I like it. I think, you make this wine taste so much better because any type of wine, just sitting around chatting with you is a good time for me. Any wine's going to taste better.
Just boost me up, boost my ego up. I love it, Liam. You were the one who also, side note, I need to mention that you were the one who taught me about wines and flavors in the middle of Jacksonville, North Carolina. Yeah, we were nowhere near any vineyards, but you taught me, and you had that little, what is the app you had? Not to promote the app.
Vivino. I know. I love Vivino. Oh, I will talk about Vivino all day. They don't even have to sponsor me. I will literally blow that ad up. It's just brilliant. And if you can kind of go from not knowing anything to pretending to be an expert about wine. It's like that app for stargazing where you can see all the constellations. So you can really impress someone on a date, whether it's Josh or someone else. You can just talk about all your wines. Oh man, you bring up a bottle of wine to me on a date and that's it for me.
Steamy.
That is it for me. Steamy.
He's done.
That is hot.
He's done. Take me home, honey.
All right. Well, so Lucy, I think we talked enough about wine. I think we should transition over to the crime part. What do you think?
I guess. Yeah, I'm down. Let's do it.
So Lucy, this week I want to tell you about a haunting case from where I grew up that is still unsolved to this day. At least it is on paper. This is a case that will make you wonder about how some people are able to get enough power to use it to their advantage and do the bad things. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of Sherri Orofino and the Taconic state murder. In March 1987, Sherri and Paul Orofino were newlyweds. They had just gotten married less than a year ago. Just a few months earlier, they had moved out of Manhattan to Millbrook, New York, which is about an hour and a half north of New York City. They made the moves for reasons that every couple who were just starting their lives together has. They figure it'll be cheaper, safer, and easier to raise kids. Now, I'm from the area, and so I can attest that a lot of people who live in New York City moved away from New York City to get away from the hustle and bustle of Manhattan and just want to settle down. Adding to that decision, Paul had just recently opened a recording studio in Millbrook, which was doing very well. It was busy and a band had booked out the studio for a month straight. So Paul warned Sherri he had a lot of late nights ahead of him, and he told her he expected to be working past midnight every single night. Sherri understood and supported him in his new business venture, but likely figured, why the heck am I going to sit around in my house by myself every single night waiting for him to get home? So she decided she was going to spend a few nights with her friends in Bayside, Queens, which is where she and Paul were both from. Around 3 a.m. on March 1st, Sherri tells her friends she is going to make the hour-and-a-half trip back home to cook Paul dinner, which feels very late to me, but okay. She told Paul of her plans and left. In the meantime, Paul is at home waiting for his wife, and when the time comes and goes when she really should be pulling in without any sign of her, he starts to get a little worried. When a few hours go by, he starts to get really scared. And a few hours later, with still no Sherri, Paul makes the decision to call police. Well, police say it's still too early for them to take a report, which any true crime fan knows is total BS.
Okay, at first I was like, this is really sweet. She's going to come all the way home to make her hubby some dinner. And then I was like you mentioned, it's 3 a.m. Who's out there cooking on the stove, a stir fry at 3 a.m? Seriously, like, I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they are like really young, so I don't know. I mean, they're like our age actually at this point, so I mean,
they're young and lively. Okay,
yeah,
I see.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Like they are like younger, so I don't know. Maybe that doesn't like feel so late for like a couple of like young people like just living just outside of Manhattan, but still, I mean, like you get home and it's like the sun's basically coming up at that point by the time you're eating dinner. Like I don't know. That feels weird to me.
Did she drive home or take the train?
She drove home.
Okay, and was interesting. And Paul was already at home and she never got back. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. All right. What happens next? I'm like on the edge of my seat.
So Paul listens and continues waiting for Sherri, worried sick. 2 days pass with still no sign of Sherri. And so this is when he calls police back and officially makes a missing persons report, which shares that Sherri was last seen wearing a yellow blouse over a black tank top with black jeans and a black jacket, as reported by Westchester Magazine. And it won't be long after that when police make their first discovery in this case. Police found Sherri's car locked and abandoned off of the Taconic State Parkway on Route 134 in Millwood, not to be mistaken with Millbrook, which is where Paul and Sherri lived. Millwood is in Westchester County, New York, while Millbrook is in Dutchess County, 2 counties away and about an hour away. Sherri's car's location is about 40 minutes from her friend's place in Bayside, Queens.
So, okay, what stuck out to me there is that the car's locked. Mm-hmm. And she's not inside.
Right. So clearly, I mean, she walked away and, you know, whoever had the keys when they walked away, like, you know, had enough sense to lock the door at the very least. But to me, that also says, like, if I'm a criminal too, like, I don't really think to lock the door, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, that feels like a really specific detail. So, like, to me, that almost says, like, okay, it's like, so she left her car voluntarily, and first thing I do whenever I leave my car is lock it.
Fair enough, yeah. And it was just, like, abandoned in the middle of a state parkway. Okay. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Very interesting. And she's in nice clothes. Mm-hmm. Sounds like she was styling.
Hanging out with some friends.
Yeah, just a night on the town for Sherri. And then Paul's like, so, I mean, at first I was like, oh, it's 2 days. That's a long time. But, I mean, we're talking 1980s. So they don't have text. They don't have, you know, easily accessible phone calls. So, okay, that makes sense. All right.
Yeah, I mean, and I can almost even see, too, like, in the 1980s, like, again, like today, like, I don't hear from a friend in, like, 2 hours, and I am like, oh my god, like, why aren't you responding to my text messages? Like, this is weird. But, like, 1980, like, they don't have cell phones, like, they don't have, all this technology to, like, keep in touch with someone whenever they want to. So, like, maybe 2 days, like, isn't, like, that still feels like a long time to, like, not hear from your wife, but, like, isn't, like, that feels maybe potentially, like, a reasonable amount of time to wait to see, like, what happens.
Right, and they also, like, it doesn't sound like they spent that much time together. They sound like an adorable, classic East Coast couple that, like, commutes, but, I mean, he's busy at his studio. Paul's busy at his studio.
Yeah, and, like, also, too, like, I can imagine, like, because she was staying with friends, so if I'm Paul, and I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe she just decided to just stay with friends longer. Like, okay. But, like, you know, at some point, like, you have to call the friends and be like, okay, where the heck is Sherri?
Right. We love an extra day sleepover. The girls are just having too much fun. But then definitely, like, check in. Like, call Susan and be like, where's Sherri? You know, on the house phone. They had house phones back then, right? I know we're...
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm intrigued now.
So pretty much immediately, Paul is a prime suspect in Sherri's disappearance. He is grilled by police and subjected to intense interrogations. And he tells Westchester Magazine, police tell him that 90% of the time, the husband does it, and that if he didn't do it, he probably hired someone to do it, which isn't, like, factually incorrect, but certainly, like, a really weird way to base your criminal investigation, like, before you even find a body.
Those grilling interrogations to try to have someone admit to doing something when there's not that much evidence. Yeah, then it's just like, oh my goodness. I mean, I would be scared. I would be like, did I do it? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you start second guessing yourself at some point.
Yeah.
For sure. So Paul agrees to a polygraph test where the intense interrogations continue. He says police tell him that they saw him with a certain criminal and that they know he hired someone to kill Sherri.
Like a hitman?
Yeah, I guess so.
Or
yeah.
woman, sorry. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, it's 1980, so probably a hitman, if we're being real.
Fair enough.
So Paul does pass that polygraph test, and I guess this changes minds of police, and they just like change course, and they're like, okay, yeah, like we believe you didn't do it. I'm like, okay, cool. Police set up roadblocks around where Sherri's car was found, and they start asking people what they saw the night Sherri went missing. Maybe like a bit of a reach for a very high traveled area, especially considering this likely happened around like 4 a.m, but it ends up paying off. Police get a tip that may not have seemed important then, but would definitely be important later. A witness tells a police officer that they saw someone matching Sherri's description being pulled over by a police officer around where Sherri's car was found. And it was just about the same time Sherri would have been in Millwood if she did indeed leave Queens around 3 o'clock in the morning. So this tip seems pretty legit at least on the face.
Being pulled over by a police officer. Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is getting interesting. So now law enforcement's involved?
Yeah, so big spoiler alert here. That is a huge detail in this case much later on. So store that in the back of your head.
No, that's either like in pornos or like in horror movies, I feel like, where the police officer pulls you over.
So this is either Pornhub or Unsolved Mysteries, nothing in between.
Precisely. No in between. Okay.
So months go by in the search for Sherri with little information and seemingly no real leads to go off of. By August, it seemed like their best chance of finding Sherri was if it just happened by accident, and that's exactly what happened. On August 9th, 1987, 5 months after Sherri went missing, a father is out fishing in the Croton Reservoir with his sons. One of their lines got caught on a branch, so the father went to go remove it. He looks down and finds what looks like a human skull. He immediately calls state police, who arrive a while later and find the rest of the skeletal remains scattered around the area, seemingly from animal activity. Police also find a wedding ring and fingernails, and they were somehow able to determine the remains belonged to Sherri Orofino.
Yikes, that is one way for some father-son bonding. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, all these years later, they're like, yeah, remember that time that we found a body?
Yeah, son, what a great time. Yeah,
right.
Crack a cold one open. Oh my goodness, That is terrifying. Okay.
Yeah.
So the fingernails and the wedding ring, were they on her? Were they on the skeleton? Oh, I guess they would be nearby because she'd be decomposed, right?
Oh, like heavily decomposed. I'm guessing that the way that they were, I couldn't find anything that like said how they were able to determine it because this is like way before DNA. So I'm guessing that it was that wedding ring. I feel like that is pretty specific enough that you would be able to show that to like your husband and be like, hey, is this the wedding ring you gave your wife?
Yeah, you would hope the husband would be able to like identify that. How far is this from where Sherri's car was found?
So about 2 miles away in Yorktown, New York. So not too far, but like definitely far enough for police to believe Sherri likely didn't walk there from her car. I mean, keep in mind, she went missing in March in New York. So like cold. Maybe not Minnesota cold. But.
I was just thinking that. I didn't realize it was in March in New York. So it's not likely she's like just going for a stroll or like, okay, was her car broken down? Was there any evidence of that? Probably not, right?
No, her car was totally fine.
Goodness. Were they able to figure out how she died?
So, no. Sherri's body was so decomposed a cause of death could not be determined, but police investigate her death as a homicide and believe that she may have died during a sexual assault because her clothes were off and scattered when her body was found.
Plot twist. Mm-hmm. Wow. I wasn't expecting that. The black and yellow, the blouse. Mm-hmm. It's, oh my gosh.
That cute outfit just scattered all over the reservoir.
No. Shoot, Sherri. That's really sad. Okay. So they thought that it could be a sexual assault, but only because the clothes were scattered and were off of her. I mean, that does make sense. Okay. Was there any evidence? Was there any way to determine evidence back then if there was, DNA evidence of a sexual assault? Probably too early, right?
So yeah, way too early for DNA. Everything that I saw was like the sexual assault was only because the clothes were off. And so it was like nowadays it's like you have to perform a rape kit before you like make that kind of accusation. And it's like, that was obviously not the case here.
It's a whole ordeal. I mean, what on earth are police doing at this point?
Yeah, so at some point in this investigation, now that they have moved on beyond Paul, police get a pretty good idea of who may actually be responsible for Sherri's death. And they name him publicly to local media, which is like a really strange move looking back from 2023, because that never happens today. I know you know that because you work in local news.
Yes.
But I think they may have been using a pretty interesting strategy to get more evidence on the suspect that they have in their crosshairs, because they think that he may have done this before. All right, Lucy, how is your wine tasting?
A little too good, Liam. I think that the Josh is hitting me. He's coming in hot. How about you?
Okay, show your bottle. Show your bottle.
My bottle? Ooh. Why are you laughing?
Let the record show it's like 3/4 of the way full or empty. Oh my God,
do not
you're so
expose
funny.
me to the fans, okay?
I did see. I'm like, listen, I have like no judgment whatsoever, Lucy.
It's a safe space.
You know, I'm the last person to judge about this.
It's a safe space.
It's a safe space. But this one of the reasons why I love you is I did see you were filling up that glass quite a bit. Pace yourself, girly, because it's about to get real.
No way. Okay, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Okay. So in January 1988, Fran Calderon is leaving work around 3 a.m. when she is pulled over on the Taconic State Parkway in Westchester County. Now, she isn't just some typical driver. She's actually leaving her job as an NYPD police officer. Fran flashes her police ID and asks the officer what the problem was. The officer says she was doing fine on straightaways, but he had some concerns about her driving around the turns. The officer asks if she had been drinking, and she said no. After about 15 minutes, the officer eventually just lets Fran go. But something bugs Fran about this interaction, not only because he was this local cop giving her a hard time about nothing really and for no real reason, but also because she thought the cop shouldn't have pulled her over at all, because the Taconic State Parkway was outside of his department's jurisdiction. The Taconic State Parkway runs through Briarcliff Manor, but the department has no jurisdiction over traffic stops on the highway. Instead, that legal responsibility falls on state police. So this cop had absolutely no legal right pulling people over to begin with, let alone to become inappropriate with drivers during the stop.
Yeah, no pacing on this one. I'm taking a sip. That's okay. Wow. This cop is creepy.
Well, but also like think about like talk about the wrong person to do this to. Like, she's like, I know my stuff and you're not supposed to.
Yeah, Fran. She knew.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people, I mean, you know, we work in the news world. A lot of people, and I mean, myself included, admittedly, I was not well versed with like trooper versus deputy versus, police officer, you know, like the sheriff's office, all the different jurisdictions and the places that they covered. And I've realized that a lot of people don't know that either. But Fran knew her shit, excuse my French. And she knew that was incorrect. So go Fran.
And let's just stop here for a second and talk about your rights as a driver. If you are driving and you're getting pulled over by a police officer, there is absolutely nothing wrong with refusing to stop, and that before you are able to call into dispatch and say, hey, like, is this real? Like, am I actually getting pulled over? Because dispatch knows. Like, police officers have to call into dispatch and say, hey, pulling over this driver for whatever. And then you at least have that reassurance to know, yes, I'm being legally pulled over by a police officer and everything's legit here. And, you know, then you have that peace of mind for yourself.
I didn't even know that. That's a great point. And also you hear about these like I mean, my biggest fear growing up was being kidnapped, and you hear about these stories about people putting a police officer or a deputy, one of those sirens on the top of their cars and pretending to be a police officer, and they're not. And that you should be more aware, which is just so messed up, because they're supposed to be out there to protect us, and there's these people posing as that. So I didn't even know that you could call in. That's actually, that's fascinating. But
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and I would really encourage anyone to do that. I mean, I feel like whenever you get pulled over, it's such like a scary thing, so I feel like it's easier said than done. But I mean, you have the legal right to do that, and I would really encourage anyone to do that because there are lots of people out there who will take advantage of you.
Sorry to throw a wrench in here, but what about those states where it's illegal to use your phone while driving now? Are you allowed to call 911?
Well, true. So to be clear, when I say that, I mean pull over, into a safe spot, put the car in park, and then call dispatch. I should probably say that first and foremost.
That makes sense. So keep your doors locked. Don't roll them down. Just call dispatch. Just give them the little, okay, hold on a second. Don't intrude my space. I'm just checking to see if you're legit or not, because this cop might not be.
Yeah, right. And if he is legit, then he should not have a problem with that.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
So the next day, Fran calls a friend, a state trooper, about the traffic stop and probably just going off about this dumb local cop who gave her just such a hard time and didn't know what he was doing and forced her to be late getting home from work at like 3 a.m. Well, this is all Fran's friend needs to hear. Alarmed, he tells Fran that she needs to get down to the station right away, which she does. And when she gets there, Fran's friend tells her that he believes she may have gotten pretty lucky because they're on to a cop from Briarcliff Manor who they believe has been doing this a lot. They connected this single cop to a string of women who were pulled over on the Taconic when the cop made sexual advances toward them. And not only was he inappropriate, but in a lot of those cases, he was out of line from a jurisdictional perspective as well.
That's just repulsive. Ugh. I don't even want to yeah. That's just, again, what I said, you're trusting these people and then they violate your trust. That's just, it's one bad apple in a sea of people trying to do good. That's just so yucky.
Yeah. So state investigators were able to identify the officer as Ronald Langer, a sergeant at the Briarcliff Manor Police Department. Eventually, they were able to connect him to about 8 different female victims, and investigators said if you line them up, they practically look like sisters. Young, pretty, white woman with blonde hair.
Jeez, that's Ronald. He just wears the badge and that's so disgusting. 8 women? That might as well, were they all dead?
So no. Just none of those 8 women died, just to be clear. And also should be noted too that a lot of these women didn't come forward until he was announced publicly as a suspect in Sherri's death.
Yeah, they were probably scared. He's in law enforcement. That's what that's scary. That's very, very scary.
Yeah.
Whew.
So we're going to get to that in a second, but police were able to determine those 8 cases ranged from at least from February 1987 to January 1988.
Okay, and when did Sherri go missing again?
March 1st, 1987. And get this, we get a very detailed account from one of the victims, and she tells police it happened on February 28th, 1987. The day before Sherri went missing.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh my gosh. Okay, so what happened?
So very similarly to Sherri, Jennifer Hummel is driving on the Taconic State Parkway in Westchester County, New York around 3 a.m. when she is stopped by a police officer. Only this officer is a state trooper. Now, Jennifer is 19 at the time, and she had been drinking, which was not legal at the time. The drinking age was raised to 21 in 1984, but at the time, New York did not have its zero tolerance law on the books, meaning anyone under 21 with any amount of alcohol in their system would be charged with a DUI, even if it's under the legal limit of 0.08 BAC. But the trooper lets her go and sends her on her way. Just a few miles later, though, she's stopped again by another police officer near Campfire Road in Millwood. It's just 9 minutes from where Sherri's car was found. Only this time, the cop was not a state trooper. He was a Briarcliff police officer, Sergeant Ronald Langer. Jennifer tells LowHUD.com that she, quote, sensed right away she needed to stay calm and not anger him. Langer starts questioning her, asking her if she had been drinking, to which she replies yes, but she tells him, I was just stopped by a state trooper. I passed a breathalyzer test and he let me go. So she's like, I'm totally fine. Just go about your business. But he's not convinced. He refuses to let her go, saying she's just too drunk to drive. He insists that she comes with him in his patrol car to drive around for a bit until she's okay to drive herself home. So after a bit of back and forth, she reluctantly agrees and goes with him. She says they drove around for a bit, but then eventually he took them to a deserted spot overlooking the Croton River. Jennifer tells LoHud.com that they chatted for a while and he did most of the talking. He tells her how he feels unappreciated in the police force. He complains that everyone mistreats him and even says he had been shot in the line of duty at one point, but didn't get any recognition, which, like, weird flex, but, like, okay. At some point, though, he pulls her in and tries to kiss her, but she pulled back, still very cautious, though, of angering him. She insists that she's okay to drive and she wants to go back to her car at this point, but he says, nope, you're still not okay to drive and you still need to stay a little bit longer. So they go back and forth, and Langer finally says that she just needs a cup of coffee before he'll let her drive home. So he says he's going to take her to a local diner first. So they drive to the nearest diner. He brings it to her car and she, like, downs it, like homegirl just empties the cup into her mouth. An hour after Langer initially initiated the traffic stop, Langer takes Jennifer back to her car, which is still pulled over on the shoulder of the Taconic State Parkway. Langer asks Jennifer for her number, but she says no, but he's persistent. Finally, she agrees and just gives him her number, and he responds by trying to kiss her again. But this time, she pulls away, gets into her car, slams the door, locks it, and floors.
Hell yeah, Jennifer. Oh my gosh, get the hell out of there. That is disgusting.
Yeah. So Jennifer later tells investigators that Langer tried to call her several times after that, and she never answered until one day she picks up and tells him to leave her the heck alone, stop calling her, and then she never hears from him ever again. According to LoHud.com, though, Langer denies pretty much the entire story. He admits that he did bring her to a diner for a coffee to sober her up, but says he never took her to the Croton Reservoir and only called her once after that. Jennifer pretty much tries to push this interaction out of her mind until one day, 18 months after the traffic stop, she sees Ronald's name pop up in the local newspaper, connected to a local woman's mysterious death. Police believe that Langer may have something to do with Sherri's death, and the circumstances would certainly appear to be the strangest of coincidences if they're not connected at all. For starters, if you remember Lucy, a witness reported that they saw a woman matching Sherri's description being pulled over where her car was found just a few days later. And this was just minutes from where Jennifer was pulled over 24 hours prior, almost exactly. But on top of that, the location Jennifer describes to police where Ronald took her that night was almost exactly where Sherri's body was found 5 months later.
Looks like Ronald has some explaining to do.
Oh, so much explaining to do. Like,
Ronald.
Come on.
Come on.
Come on. Come on.
I see you pouring another glass of wine. That's necessary.
Yeah,
Can you imagine that she literally was, like, stuck in the car with him? Thank God she got herself to a diner. I'm just picturing him pushing her into a river at that point. So thank goodness they got to a diner. But, I don't know. And even if she went to people, at that point, the uniform in the diner, I feel like, would have not done her any justice. So, like, she just did the best she could.
Yeah.
But good for her for speaking up once she knew about Sherri. That is incredibly bold and brave and beautiful and terrifying, honestly.
Yeah. Well, so this is all really just too circumstantial of evidence for police. After all, who's to say there aren't two bad cops out there doing things just outside of the law? I mean, odds are pretty slim, but there is some chance, hypothetically speaking. Ronald denies having any connection to Sherri or her death, but in the meantime, a federal investigation against him is heating up. Langer is accused of illegally stopping at least 8 different women under false pretenses. Only 5, though, could identify Ronald, and one woman, Lori Anderson, actually says it happened to her twice. Ronald is suspended from the Briarcliff Manor Police Department because of the federal investigation, but he ends up resigning in February 1989. He later told LoHud.com that he was wanting to quit anyways because he didn't think that he was able to serve as a cop with the publicity going on from this case. So about a year later, Ronald is arrested and charged with federal Fourth Amendment violations. It's the first time the federal government has ever arrested a police officer for actions taken on duty. In court filings, a judge writes that each of his traffic stops lasted from about 15 to 20 minutes to about an hour. He would pull over his victims on deserted stretches of highway while enforcing intoxication and driving laws while outside of his jurisdiction in Briarcliff Manor. He did not issue a single ticket to any of his victims, but they testified that they were too afraid for their safety during the stops and went along with what they told them because of that. He was eventually convicted and sentenced to 6 years in federal prison.
Hold up. Grab the bottle. Ronald is convicted of laws that pertain to stopping people without a cause, right? Mm-hmm. But he's not convicted of the murder of Sherri.
Right. So he served 30 months of his sentence before he was released on parole, but he was never charged with Sherri's death, even to this day, despite police being very vocal that he is their prime suspect as recently as 2015. Police say the investigation is still very active and very open. The lead investigator told a reporter for lowhud.com in 2015 that he was still conducting interviews as recently as a few weeks before that article was published. But they admit that they wish things had been different. One of the investigators even told lowhud.com pretty recently that they wish they had access to DNA and the technology that we do today back then, because they probably would have been able to build a better case.
Even without the evidence, though, I don't know. I'm not in law enforcement, but it seems pretty sus to me.
Well, I mean, and it's also, I don't know, and I know it's very circumstantial. I know you cannot build a case around this, but it just seems weird that it's like all this is happening like literally within like, from my understanding, like within the 5-mile stretch of like one parkway, and it's all just like weird circumstances, like all connecting to this dude, this one officer, and like it's like your argument is really like, yeah, like that's just a weird coincidence. Like,
do we know her cause of death at this point? Sherri's cause of death?
No, we never find that out.
So that's probably why. And that's so messed up, but it's probably because they can't find the cause of death. I mean, 5 out of 8 of these women are able to identify him as the weirdo that pulled them over for basically no reason. They're probably sober driving through this area or near sober. One of them even has to be forced to go and he tries to kiss her. In the same stretch, like you said, literally days before, but I don't know, maybe it's the cause of death that they're waiting for. In any case.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes me sad a little bit only because it's like, you know, we have the benefit of technology today. And it's like, if they had that back then, they probably would have been able to prove it. I mean, because DNA does not go away, you know, like it's there for forever. And so it's like, yeah, they probably would have been able to test the shirts or the clothes, the remains, and seeing if his DNA is on there, and then boom, that's it. Like, case closed. Like, you know, there's no denying that.
So the man's is still alive, and aren't there all these cases? I've heard of cases where they can literally test the DNA now. Do you think they could test his DNA and her DNA if they like had that evidence? That's the thing, is some of this evidence is preserved and some of it's not in cases like these. And I guess we don't know with Sherri.
Yeah, you know, and I had that same exact thought, Lucy. I was like, okay, can't they just like retest the bones? Like, can't they just do this? But I haven't seen that has been done, just again from the sources that I've been reading on. Like, I would love, you know, if somebody has intimate knowledge of this case, like is listening to this and, is, you know, can reach out to us and, you know, give us that update, just that way we can update this, you know, with more accurate information. But I've seen so much of that where it's been like cases going back to the 60s, the 50s even, where they brought those back when they had more update technology and retested stuff to be able to finally convict someone of this and give these families answers. And it feels like that should happen and it can happen. And I just have not seen that it happened here.
No, I love that you said that. If anyone knows anything about this case, I mean, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, I would love that again. And this is, like I said, I feel very passionate about this because this is where I grew up. And so, you know, I am not just some, you know, voice on a podcast. Like, I am a member of this community and I want this solved because these are my neighbors. And so please, if an investigator is out there listening to this, reach out and say, yeah, this is the most updated information on this. And I would love to update this because I have not seen anything on this as of recently of 2016.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh, Liam. What on earth happens next?
Ronald denies the federal charges altogether and claims to be framed not only in those 8 traffic stops, but also in Sherri's death. Police kind of share some confusion, too, about where Sherri's car was found. If they are operating under the assumption that Sherri was being pulled over by a police officer, they said where she pulled her car over didn't make a whole lot of sense. It was off an exit on the Taconic. So, like I said, I'm from the area and I'm not super familiar with this particular stretch of the Taconic, but I can tell you that the Parkway is like notoriously windy and narrow, and you're not even allowed to drive on it until you're able to get your full senior license. So until you're like a full driver. So I can definitely see myself getting pulled over on the Taconic and just like getting off of it altogether, because it's just like so much safer for yourself and the police officer.
Yeah, I had no idea. We're picturing a windy highway.
Like you have no idea. It's like even as like a very experienced driver, like it's scary.
Is it like mountains? Is it, what are we talking?
Yeah, so you're driving through like ridge cuts, like past like reservoirs, like even for like very experienced drivers, it's like the most dangerous drive you can take in the Hudson Valley.
Yeah, so Sherri seemed like she did the exact right thing for anyone driving on the Taconic. But I mean, what about Ronald? What's Ronald up to now? He's still alive?
Yeah, as far as I know, and like what he's doing today is kind of the kicker of this whole story, Lucy. Ronald was hired by the New York State Department of Labor in 2001. When asked by Aloha.com reporter about the hire, a spokesperson for the department said that he is innocent until proven guilty, and that formerly incarcerated people have the right to make a living just like everybody else. And Lucy, I'm not even going to mince words here. That response pisses me off, because obviously I agree with the statement on its face, but that does not apply to the situation. Yes, Ronald is not a convicted murderer, but he is a convicted of federal crimes. And oh, by the way, those crimes are related to the power he abused as a government employee.
Cheers to that, Liam. I just cannot even, like, Ronald, you have no excuse at this point. The department has no excuse. The justice system has no excuse. I know you're innocent until proven guilty, but what more evidence do you need when you don't have DNA testing? I mean, if there's any sort of evidence left, any of those fingernails, anybody who knows anything, speak out, because, I mean, usually I try to look at all angles, but it's really hard with all this details to find an excuse for Ronald to not be guilty. I'm really trying, and I'm struggling.
Yeah. Well, but like, okay, let's put the murder aside, right? Because I tend to agree with like, okay, yes, like he has never been convicted of murder. He's never been charged with murder. So like, we can put the murder aside for a second. As a government official, as a police officer, he still like faced charges, was convicted, and served time of abusing his power to do horrible things to women that traumatize women, and to this day, you know, made them relive that over and over and over again. And you're just going to be like, oh yeah, well, like, that's fine. You know, and I'm not saying that like people who serve their time, like I believe in rehabilitation, like that's what jail is for. Like I totally am there for that. But like if I was like for our job, right? Like if I lied on a story, right? Like I would get, that is like the basis of my job. If that happened, I would get fired from my job and I would never be able to work at another TV station again. And yet you're telling me that this man was convicted of these horrible crimes against women for abuse of power as a government official. By the way, that his salary is paid by taxpayers. And you're just going to be like, oh yeah, like that's fine. Like, yeah, he can come work for us. Like, that's okay. Like, and again, I don't know what he does. Like, he could be like Department of Labor is like a very broad umbrella. Like he could literally be like picking up trash for all I know. But like, so I'm not saying that he shouldn't be able to do that, but I just think it's a weird vibe to be like, when you're asked about it, to be like, oh yeah, like he served his time. Like, that's okay.
As reporters, we'd probably even get sued. Like, we'd probably not even get fired. We get sued. And Ronald, it's not only he's going back into a private like company, you know, it's not like he's going to work he's working for the government,
which I would be so for, because I don't think that like, you know, like I again believe in rehabilitation. I don't think that you should get out of jail and like not be able to live your life ever again. Like you should be able to get a job, but like how are you going to rehire somebody to get paid by taxpayers again,
to work for the people and serve the people?
Yeah. Right. And like, to be clear, like so let's just say, hypothetically speaking, you lived in Briarcliff Manor as far back as 1987. So you were paying this man's salary via your taxes back in 1987. And you still live in Briarcliff Manor, after all is said and done, you are still paying this man's salary because he still works for the government. Like, that should piss you off. No? I'm sorry. I just that gets me so heated when I read that. I just got so mad about it.
Oh, get heated. You, me, and Josh. I am heated. I actually heated about it. I mean, seriously. All jokes aside, it's just, you hear time.
That's not right.
You hear time and time again about these, and for some reason, it's particularly in law enforcement. Maybe because it's more noticeable because we're dealing with like life or death or like traumatizing. Who knows? But it's just they're let back into some sort of government job or the police force or the shit, and you're just like, why? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't. It really doesn't. And it's just like, if you work for the people, you should, regardless of what you're doing, you're still working for the people, and you should be able to show that you are worthy of that.
Working for the people,
regardless of what it is.
Working for the people, not violating women and making them feel uncomfortable, and maybe murdering them. I didn't say it, but
and maybe murdering them.
Abuse of power, yeah. Abuse of trust, abuse of power. No, cheers to that. I see you taking that sip. Can you please tell us if there even is an end to the story?
Oh, barely an end. But I can tell you that this makes Ronald's victims just as angry as I am. And I should probably say survivors, because that's really what they call themselves. Lori Anderson tells Loha.com that for a while after those traffic stops, she just could not drive on the Taconic State Parkway at night again. Jennifer Hummel said she was surprised when she got a call from a Loha.com reporter because she had successfully pushed Ronald Langerer out of her mind for decades. But she expressed some anxiety and a little regret about the situation because she said maybe it could have, or maybe even should have, been her who died instead of Sherri. And she wonders if she came forward that night instead of waiting a year and a half later, if maybe it could have saved Sherri's life. As for Sherri's case, it still remains, at least on paper, an unsolved mystery. So if you have any information about Sherri's death, you're asked to call the New York State Police at 914-737-7171.
I mean, just heartbreaking that Jennifer just, like, she still is thinking about this. These women are traumatized. And she said, it could have been her. It could have been her. That's just...
Well, and what blows my mind, it's like it happened, so what? I think we said 9 miles away, 24 hours before, to the minute, basically.
I'm glad you brought this one up. It's just another example of women, not having their voices heard until it's maybe too late. And even, like you said, even if he wasn't guilty of the murder, it's just still important to have some answers and still have some more information.
Right. And I've heard of cases being solved over longer periods of time, so I am not counting out that there's somebody out there who knows something, who maybe is listening to this and saying, yeah, you know what, that was strange. And can come up to police and say, yeah, and that could really be the thing that puts someone behind bars for this.
For sure. I'm so glad you brought this case up. I'd never heard about it before, and I can't believe I hadn't. And it's right near your hometown,
Well, Lucy, don't know how to make this transition. I'm just going to do it because it's like sad ending, but like happy that you made it here. And thank you so much for coming on and talking about this and drinking a glass of wine with me, just like the good old days, and talking about some like creepy crime stories.
I love it, Liam. We started out in a small town together telling stories there, and now you're telling some really big, important stories. So yeah.
And now we're BFFs, and we don't even have to compete against each other. So cheers to that.
Oh, yeah. We used to be competitors.
Yeah. Love that. Cheers to you.
Cheers, bitch. I love you.
So tell everyone where they can find you and your work online.
Right now?
No, later. Yes, right now.
Let's see. Lucy Nelson TV on Twitter, at Lucy Nelson TV. I will be covering all the stories in Utah. There is never a shortage of interesting things that happen here. And if you know any crime things that are happening here, any crime murder cases, I mean, we always like to get the word out, and maybe Liam can tell it in his amazing storytelling way. So
I would love that. And I love a cold case. So if you know of any cold cases in Utah that just need a little push, a little extra coverage, you know how to find Lucy now to get the word out there and maybe find justice for some of the cold cases in Utah.
Oh, amazing, Liam. I'm so honored you had me. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on. And thank you all so much for listening. We are going to put all of our sources on our website so you can read everything for yourself and probably come up with a few theories too. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and we will see you next week for another episode of Crime Over Wine.
Proud member of the Podnuga Network.
Hey, it's Amy Brown from The Bobby Bone Show. Join me in supporting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital for a chance to win a trip to meet Megan Maroney at the 2025 iHeart Country Festival in Austin, Texas on May 3rd, hosted by Bobby Bones. We're going to hook you up with tickets, flights, hotel, food credits, and a meet and greet with Megan Maroney. Take action now to support St. Jude and help cure childhood cancer, and you're going to be entered for a chance to win. Visit iHeartCountryTrip.com to learn more.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.